was yesterday.
Not even more people to take it, I'll have to vote. She's.
Okay, I think, got the recording started.
Mhm.
Let's bring the meeting to order.
Yep.
And the first point of business is the approval of Peg's minutes
From last time,
of
yeah.
the last meeting. So if I have someone to motion to
I'll make the motion to accept my own notes.
a second, I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
All in favor? Aye,
Aye.
aye.
We're good.
And,
Kersey,
Dave?
aye.
Yeah.
Kersey, aye.
Voted abstain. I wasn't present.
I wasn't present either.
Okay, that's
Oh,
fine.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's a quorum, those four of us, that's fine. The minutes are accepted. Okay, I sent out a packet electronically as well to go along with the agenda. The things on the critical date path, I think I just want to touch upon that a little bit as we make progress. That'll be page 2 of the handout in the room and probably the second document I sent out. Since our last meeting, we went to the FinCom and the Select Board, and we're approved to spend up to 10,000 K coming out of FinCom reserve to do a redesign with the architect. Because of vacations and a number of things, the first call with Mike will be this Friday. I'm gonna have a call tomorrow. So I'm gonna give him a list of things that came up, and we'll talk about that in a minute. We'll talk about that now. One of the things we're trying to do is to reduce the cost by a few $1 million by shrinking the footprint this way. Also looking at the possibilities of not finishing the complete basement off. Dave came up with a suggestion of using a school, Globe School, BBT, to do some of the finish work after the build, and something we can consider. We looked at also getting a better handle on what we could do around a few $1 million less to come back to the town. I've got some information here that might say that's important as we go through this. We still want to function, we all agree that the functionality of the senior center, it needs to be bigger. We've outgrown ourselves. We want to keep the capabilities of what we have planning. First blush, we would move some of the functions that were upstairs, potentially downstairs. And not much community space at this point. In the future, we could add on community space. So that's a proposal we're looking at.
I'd like to see what that means, if I'm moving some of the functions upstairs down.
That's the next step we have to get into. That's why we got the money to talk to Mike. I didn't want to engage him without getting him paid for what his.
Oh, absolutely.
The other thing that came up that we're going to try to look into, we asked, there was a suggestion to have Mike look at the reuse of the current building with potential tenants, which would be Parks and Recs, for an example, and come up with what the value of that building would be if they were using it for their facility. So we could come back to the town and said the building has a targeted reuse, doesn't have to be final. The cost saving from future capital expenditures would be X dollars based on a rough design and talking with the team. The other thing we talked about is and you heard a lot of this, Elena, was the current building again that circles back on a regular basis. Why we didn't make that decision being more definitive on that. That was rumbling. I think we in this room know it, but we want to maybe have Mike articulate from an architect standpoint. We had the well issue, which is a non-standard well. We had to redesign the septic system. We'd have to tear the whole back off and then chop it down and push out. We have that acre, which is next door. And the cost, the first time we went around, I think we all felt was going to be more and we'd be disrupted for a year. But I think we wanted to have the architect present that in a fashion that the townspeople would know that we really did more due diligence on that. And that's kind of where we're at. And I had the first call with Mike Friday. And really last week he was off and I had some emergencies at the family earlier this week. So that was where we're going to start to invest that 10,000. I'd like to not spend it all. So, I would like to say some of that. So that's where we're at with the redesign. We'll talk about some demographics of the vote that I took a look at a little bit later. But just to go through, finish this list. And Mike, you haven't been here for a while, so you're probably hearing some new things. What do you think about that?
I think, to be my personal opinion is we're gonna try to shrink it down. It's the prudent thing to do, but we better be ready for why didn't you do it in the first place? From all the naysayers and the negative input.
I think, when I talked briefly to Mike Petrovic before we got the funding to do the redesign, he wanted to have a complete use case for each room and what are we missing and what are we losing. We talked about having the food pantry in the bottom floor, but unfinished as it is today. And maybe that's not as big as it is proposed. There'll be less meetings rooms, so we're gonna have to show what's changing.
I mean, I think we can also say if we expect to outgrow it a lot faster. I
Right.
mean, I think that's one issue, like the hope is that we'll be designing something that will be big enough to grow, to use for, I don't know, some number. We were hoping the other one would be good for 30 years. And what I guess we're not expecting the new proposal to be big enough for, as the,
As the
next
population
generation.
grows, yeah,
As the
as the
population
grows.
continues to age.
So there's downsides. I mean, my first reaction, Mike, was to go back at it we did the analysis, but I know this town.
That was my take when I heard that it failed. Let's give it another shot. Don't back down.
Yeah.
Give it another shot.
Well, I think we are going to ask Mike about like building it to be like expandable,
Yeah.
right? So that's sort of and we didn't want to have to do that to go in stages because
More expensive.
it was just it's this idea that we could get something that was big enough the first time so that we wouldn't have to get right back in line. But this means if we do this, if we're successful, we effectively will get back in line for, 15, 20 years from
You
now.
will.
Well,
You could make the
Well,
case,
yeah,
this is
like-
going. I mean, Eleni, you can make the case this approach gives us more flexibility and that demographic curves can shift. So
Right.
we don't necessarily see an exponential growth of our senior population being a straight line. So that one might say this might be a more prudent approach to give us the ability to expand as needs arise or present themselves without overcommitting right now. So it might be a more conservative approach to a flexible building.
It's a good point.
Good point. Michael, we'll have you contribute some of those at the meeting.
Also, Mike, John Dennis felt exactly the same way as you did. He said, we know this is what we need and we know this will cost, and he was in favor of us keeping the amount, but the rest of us just kind of felt like we have to listen to the voters.
That's where I originally sat to, the hell would they go again? But
Because the numbers were so close.
Well, again, as a committee, whatever the majority of the committee wants to do, whether it's what I or John believe in, I know John, that once the decision's made, whatever direction we go, then we'll absolutely support it and
Mhm.
work towards it.
I think we're all in the same place we were when we looked at this at the beginning. We're all very eager to move forward. So from a timeline, that's where that, we'll talk about some of the demographics and other things later on. Just want to get through this one. Dave, do you want to give us an update on your discussion with legal and how we're looking for the ballot question language? The importance to that is that we have to have it done and approved by the select board by the 17th of July. So that it can get to the state's department to put on the official ballot for the November 5th election, November 5th. So we're trying to get the ballot question approved by legal to go through the select board, through the state Secretary of State's office, the first Wednesday in August.
Is that the deadline?
That's the deadline. We're pushing against the state deadline.
So that's basically 4 weeks.
But from what I understand, the ballot language is not going to be particularly different than what we had before. That's very constrained what we can have on this type of debt exclusion. It's written into the state laws. So, I mean, I think there's basically a like set language, and then there's for the purpose of, and the sort of this part in parentheses where you can describe the project. And so I think before council gave us, something like for the purpose of constructing a senior and community center on the property, and I think it will be
So,
very similar unless there's some change to the name of the project or the location of the project. And it sounds like we've decided it will not be different in the location of the project, but I guess there's still that potential to change the name of the project.
we had, yeah. Dave, I don't know if you heard anything back from legal, because I know you were chasing the final language to
I did.
present next.
I emailed her after we spoke earlier this week. I have a few things I'm dealing with her, and she got back to me yesterday on it. Said that she will have it prepared for the 17th for the select board meeting, and if there's any changes that need to be made that night, we can also make changes that night. So she said she will have everything ready for that night.
Excellent. Okay.
Dave, do you think it makes sense to have her think about warrant and motion language as well, get it all done at once? Or is she already doing that?
I can follow up with her once she gets it to me. I asked her to also send the article ahead of time to Phil and I before we present to the board, just in case we had any questions, we could go back and forth with her. So at the same time, once she gets it to me, whether it's tomorrow or Monday, I'll follow up with that also. I think that's going to be pretty standard though. That's probably just going to be a copy of what it is.
Well, we did a contingent, like the wording around contingency, not the idea that it's contingent, Dave, last time. And that's what we talked to Karis about. I don't think we want the specificity around it being contingent to be in the either
Okay.
the article or the motion, right?
Okay. Yep.
It will be contingent, but it like this special wording, I guess, she pointed out to us.
Right, yeah, the wording that we had put us into one category in this, proposition 2.5. In the law, it was very specific about like the order of when the town meeting vote happened versus the election, and like.
But I don't think that matters as much. I think the language that tied us up is we had we didn't have an up to amount. So when we did the ballot, it was fixed. It was basically the amount we agreed on. So if we went back again, we'd have to go back again with the same exact thing because we didn't have up to this amount. So I think
we
that
did
might be
have
what Mike's
up to.
charging about that.
No, we did have up to.
In the actual ballot?
No, not on the ballot. The ballot doesn't have the number.
No, but the ballot authorizes a spending, so we didn't copy the up to part. So we had an authorized amount. So once that was spent, we couldn't go back with a lower number afterwards because the ballot wouldn't be approved for the lower amount.
But the ballot doesn't have a space for number values, like.
No, but it's tied to the warrant. The wording's tied to the warrant.
But I think.
And the warrant, the motion had up to 13.2 million.
I think in the end, though, I think, Dave, aren't we really, had we tried to go back based on the initial appropriation, that'd be an issue. But since we're going in November, isn't that kind of a moot point? We have to go back and appropriate and then do the ballot, et cetera? Okay.
Yeah, we don't have a choice. You have to do both. They're contingent, whether you say contingent or not. They're absolutely contingent on each other.
Yeah. This is something Karis pointed out to us, though, and I think Elaine, I think she probably knows directionally. We don't want the column number 3. We want column number first, number 1, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The one that has the election first and the town meeting second.
Well, I guess Dave and the select board, I ask you all to close this down so we keep our deadline. Looks like we're on track. The thing we did note at the select board meeting, and we've had discussions about, the state puts out an explanation of what the ballot question means. So that because this is ambiguous language, I think as a committee, before the ballot questions go out for remote, for mail-ins, we need to have a flyer also that is neutral, not vote for, not vote against, just a neutral. If you vote for it, this is what it means. We would build this building and it would impact your taxes, blah, 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 blah. If you don't vote for it, here's what it means.
So you're saying like a yes vote means
Yes.
a no vote means,
Yes.
as clear
It's
as we
very
can.
simple, but in the layman's term rather than the legal garbage, because people said they didn't, I know one person went in, voted, and he said, oh, I got confused. He went back in and had to get another ballot, but they did switch it for him, because he just went in. Because he got confused in the language. So,
Phil, have we sat down with Ellen and given her any detail on what we're thinking about in terms of timing and sequencing and all these mailings?
yeah,
that-
I spoke with Ellen, we had a meeting shortly after our last meeting, or one before that. Ellen needs just, as soon as the select board approves it, she'll get it to the secretary's office the next day. So if we get that achieved on the 17th, she'll have ample time to turn that question, that ballot question, to the Secretary of State's office. And she also indicated by doing it on the November election, we don't incur additional election costs.
I'd be curious if we can piggyback any of her mailings. So if she's sending out mail-in ballots. Could we actually put our,
I do
this is
have-
what your vote means?
I
Is
do
that
have
real?
her dates here. She has her early voting ballots will go out early October. I don't have specific dates. But the mail-in ballots go out early October. So we need to get our mailings coordinated with that. And then they'll open early voting on October 19th. So we need to have a lot of clarification done by October 19th.
My God, explain to me what you mean by that when you say, can we piggyback on what she's sending out? Are you saying, could we add our flyer to what she's saying now? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I don't think it's, I think there's probably rules against that is my guess, and I'm not sure.
There are.
If you can eat, it's not like it's in an envelope, so I'm not sure how that worked, but as close to or adjacent to or what have you, I'd probably want to get that information out with the ballot.
Yep.
Well, maybe we could ask Ellen, because all we're saying in it is a yes vote is and a no vote is.
That's true.
We're not,
Right, you can't,
You
you
can't.
can't try to push one
right, we
way or
would,
the other.
Just like the
If you
red
send it out
booklets
as-
we get from the
as a-
state.
As a definition of this is what
Yeah.
this means and this.
right, so I don't see where the problem would.
The red book is a separate mailing though.
Right, yeah.
It can't be the
Oh,
same.
that comes from the state? The red book?
Yeah, yes, but I mean, it doesn't go with the ballot, right? The ballot has just the ballot.
But wouldn't it be good to do it like the red booklet too? I mean, the format so that, people, because
Well, it's only one, usually there's multiple questions.
But the format's a good point. See if we can model it after that.
We could maybe put it in the newspaper along with the senior scene and
Bunch of places.
get it out in a lot of places.
I thought that postcard that Kevin Rudden did for the write-in campaign for the Board of Assessors.
Yeah, that
I thought
was-
that was very effective for that Kevin Rudden and Dave
Yeah.
Kersey did. Like that format was very,
I didn't see it.
oh, well, right, because
Yeah, I didn't save it, but I did see it.
I did save it. I mean, somehow it was very clear. And I mean, I think it might be I think it's probably worth considering multiple mailings at different times, but something very compact that just has a very brief yes vote, no vote, what it means. I don't know, something to consider.
So that's the critical path of the next week, I guess. But these other points are very well taken. We do need to add to, and I do have a note here, copy the book, file the Secretary of State. We need to add the fact that we need to get our mailings out. And they have to be yes, no. We have to do that.
Right. And actually, well, so I think part of what was helpful about the postcard that Kevin and Dave did was it showed what the ballot looked like. And so maybe if we can have something in the mailing that actually has a preview of the ballot question so that people actually get familiar with it and what it means, so they're not first facing it when they have to fill in the box or the bubble.
Good points. So we'll need to get that done in the, September timeframe. You get that nailed down and get it August, September, August for maybe design and September to get it ready to go out.
You want to mail it and or put it into the free press? Press goes into every household for about.
Both towns, though, right? Or can we
No,
stipulate?
we'll just stipulate, just like we do for the food pantry, and it's about $300. For maybe $350 for the printing and the insert, which is good.
We'll just need to, maybe if you can get us reminders of the timing.
So their deadline is the 25th. So I was gonna say, each month. So I'm gonna be going on vacation in August, but if I can have something by the 25th of July, put something in the August issue, and then likewise by August 25th, we can put something in from the September issue, so on and so forth.
I would make a recommendation that we look at an update of our progress and what we're doing for this edition for August, and then September start honing in on more details, and October really, right around when these papers come out. And the September,
Paper
October.
just came out this week, right? Then was it yesterday?
Yeah, I got it a couple of days ago, yeah.
So we'll need to, Meg, we can talk about resurfacing communications, form of,
Right now, communications is just Karen and I, and we couldn't do it with three. We certainly can't do it with two.
maybe it's a priority list of what we need to do.
I mean, I have not gotten any emails from anybody. Your name and my name were in
But
the.
you've gotten them.
You got
two.
to, okay,
That's great.
yeah,
We'll talk about those
all right.
in the business. Which is good, getting some input. And down here, we do have town hall information meetings in September and October. To, do town hall, open up, publish them, see if people want to come in. And connect that with ABMI. That's the proper acronyms. And there'll be more, there's a whole, another area of communications and campaign, and I absolutely agree, if we don't get more people, we can't do it.
And we gotta get funds to pay for all of these things.
Yeah.
We already paid for them out of our pocket once.
And for the friends,
Well, they gave us some postage money too. They did.
The friends, I think, maybe we can ask them for,
they could do the insert in the
Yeah.
press.
Because that's a big amount, yeah.
and that's their function, help promote their activities.
But they won't be meeting this summer, right? So,
But they could do a flyer. They're gonna meet on that September 9th.
okay. So it might be useful to keep that in mind to ask them to vote on that at our September meeting.
Okay.
They can always call an emergency meeting of just the
The board.
board. Yeah.
So I think after we get through this document, through legal, through select, board, then we really hone in on, okay, let's get our communications piece. Let's get Mike cooking. And he'll start cooking this week, end of the week, so he'll cook next week. And then we move forward. Mike, Dave, any other thoughts or comments?
Nope, I got nothing.
Okay. The next thing on the agenda, communication we touched on. And I would ask everybody to reach out if they know anybody who wants to help. We have, is it Cheryl or who's signing up to help, I think?
Who?
I'm sorry, not Cheryl. Carolyn.
Yeah, and I think she'd be a welcome addition because she spoke very strongly about it.
She wanted to join this meeting but had some conflicts.
That's fine, that's fine.
And my wife was taking care of Nathan, so she couldn't join. She's stepping up to the help.
Okay, Great.
We need other people, whoever we can. So maybe we put out another call, Karen, if we could, even though we have,
I'll do it again.
do it again.
Yeah.
And it's summertime, but let's pound the bushes for more people. The next piece on the agenda in the new business area. There's a chart here that I sent out to everybody, but I found it interesting when I did the analysis. I took the voter, the on the email spreadsheet, I took the actual people who voted. I don't know what they voted, but I took those pieces of information. And it looks like 26% of the people, give or take a percentage, I might have screwed something up with my translation, but I feel it's like 99% there. 26% of the townspeople voted. That's a lot of people for an uncontested election. So the senior center was, up front in everybody's mind. Community center. Of the demographic breakdowns, it was interesting. Teens were only 9 people, the teens, 20s were very low. The makeup of the 30s were 11% of the population. The makeup of the 40s were 13, and the 50s came in at 70%.
17.
17, I'm sorry. So the net below 60 was only 46% of the vote. If you look at the people who were 60, which was 25%, people who were 70 were 20%, 80 were 8% and 1%. I hadn't correlated now what population do they make up of the total, but they were 54%, the seniors. So I looked at that and I said, there must be there's some interest, probably some concerns about cost. I interpret so. Then I took a look at some mail-in, but I don't have any definitive answers, but it's something that I'd urge you all to look at and think about what you can interpret from these.
Well, so the mail-in votes didn't vote. Almost half the mail-ins didn't vote, right? 41%.
Yeah, 41% didn't vote.
But maybe they showed up in person instead?
No.
Separate?
No, that's separate. I compared the two.
Okay.
So they didn't vote. Half the mail-ins didn't
You
vote.
mean they didn't vote on this question or they didn't return their ballots?
They didn't return the ballot.
Okay.
I don't have on the question analysis.
Right, so
It's on the.
Right.
they could have shown up and voted in person.
That's what I
Okay.
thought.
No, I mean,
Uh,
it would still show up, they'd still show up as having voted in the election.
In the
Right, but
spreadsheet,
not by mail.
yeah, in the
No,
spread,
I mean, yeah, not but. Right, but if their name showed up on, even if they didn't return their mail-in ballot and they showed up to vote, their name would show up as having voted in the election.
Right, but.
Right. The 4778, Elaine, I look as the superset, right? Upper left-hand corner.
That's the total voters in town.
Okay, well, the 1590, sorry.
Mhm.
Or voted 1231. I'm not even sure what 1590 means, but
that means
1231.
that means the 1231 plus people who pulled ballots on top of that. In addition,
I'm not sure what that means. I would say, I mean, so 26% of the eligible population voted, 1,231 people, correct?
yes, 1,231 people.
I would assume, looking at this, that the 518 under the mail-in section below, Phil, is a
Yep.
subset of the 1231. Is that fair?
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Yep. It is. And they could have mailed or they could have walked in.
Well, the 518 definitely mailed. The 358 to the right of that could be, we don't know, could be a part of the 1231. We don't know that to
No,
be true.
they didn't vote, Mike, because I had people who showed up, people who voted is one list, which is everybody. And people who were on the ballot. So I correlated who was mailed something.
Yeah,
So
so you
you
compared
filtered
their
out names.
spreadsheets.
You filled out the
Yeah, I
names of the
pulled it.
358?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but if you look at some sweet spots in the demographics, it's the elder population. The 30s had a big crew, and I would suspect that, there might have been a lot of people who may be looking for recreation facilities. And again, this is all speculations. I haven't drilled down, but to me, I found it as some interesting numbers to think about as we go forward.
I mean,
So,
the biggest thing that I take out, Phil, is 518 of the 1231 did mail-in voting, right? That's what I take out,
Yes, yes,
which
Or
is
impacted by it.
significant from a communication standpoint.
Yeah.
right. And we were closer missing that.
And now we have an advantage this time because we better know the timing. We know we will we will have the numbers. I mean, that will be our goal. We don't know the numbers yet, but we will plan on having those numbers earlier and communicate.
Yep.
Have that communication be more consistent, because I think we were rushing so much this time that like we didn't have that information early enough to get the message out.
I would agree.
And also we'll have people sitting there, checking off people that we expect to be showing up because they told us they were going.
Right, so that will involve keeping a spreadsheet, keeping track of.
I can.
Okay, well, thank you.
They need me for a long.
Okay.
All right, good to see
Thank
you.
you for
Mike.
coming.
Thanks.
See you tomorrow.
See you on the next one.
Good to see you, Mike. Don't work too hard.
I never work hard. The elf work.
But, you know, I thought the data was interesting to think. And you're right, there's a lot of mail-in voters, I mean, that took advantage of it.
Right. And I do think also, I think, was it Karen, was it you who said that there were some people who didn't vote? Somebody said that there were people who didn't vote on that question also.
Oh, there were blanks, like 31 or 32
And there
blanks.
was- And I think, yeah, the confusion about what it meant,
Right.
as well as maybe indecision about how, what it was, what, and so, yeah, I feel like there's a lot of opportunity there. I mean, it was still so close, 52 votes, that probably, if we'd known who to reach and explain it to, we could have made it, like, captured a few more people who didn't vote, because they thought it was in the bag.
Right. I think that's something we have in our favor too. If we go out again, the people that were surprised that it didn't pass, and they didn't vote.
Right.
Because, I was busy, or, I forgot to vote, I forgot to send in my mail-in
Right.
ballot and things like that. So maybe this time around, they'll be more apt
Right.
to, to do so.
Dave, Mike?
I think this kind of 40% of the folks potentially voted before we even got our communication out, right? So I think that's significant, and we have a plan for that, Phil, right? For the
Yeah,
mail-in
we're
piece.
developing, yeah.
I think the top half demonstrates that I think cost was probably the prohibitive factor. When I looked at demographic breakdown, I think we're trying to address that as well. So if you think about, based on what I'm looking at, we're not going to be able to do everything, but if there's two areas I think of focus that I think are important based on the data you sent me, I feel like we've got some actions that are specifically trying to address those two things. So I think that's a positive.
Yeah, I think the cost rang to me because at the end of the day, everything's so damn expensive anymore, everything's going up so much. Cost is an impact, and I bumped into somebody today in Brandon. He didn't vote one way or the other, not retired, but close to it. Thinking about moving out of town. Out of state also because of cost. But cost, he says, I wouldn't have voted for it anyway, because cost bothers me. So there's a lot of people who got hit with that. So I think by addressing that and showing due diligence, we may bring that around. I think the other thing, the impact of reuse of the building, what that may for future capital expenditures savings shows an additional, we knew it, but we didn't state it. We didn't do anything with it.
We didn't put a value on it.
Right.
So, but anyway, I thought this, when I was putting this together, I found it was an interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
I have the raw data if anybody's interested in it. It's public information. So if anybody wants the spreadsheet where I had all the people merged together with colors and then sorted out.
The one thing I would throw, and I think I heard it a couple of times, we were so close on the vote, 50 votes. This actually kind of, we were only one vote of not even getting to a ballot. So I think the turnout on the floor surprised me a little bit, because going into it, we said, hey, we expect to get to the ballot from the floor. And I don't think I've ever seen it that close, where literally one vote would have stopped it in its track. So
Yeah.
before we think it was close, but 50 votes, the fact that we were one vote away from getting to ballot, we shouldn't lose sight of that, because that's also about turnout for the town meeting floor
Right.
vote.
That's a good point. I think that's where having a spreadsheet of people, of potential supporters, that will be really important to make sure that we get those critical numbers to show up to the special town meeting.
for the committee, I'll share the spreadsheet because it's public information that anybody can get. I don't think that I worked with, and you guys can. When I looked at that, I could see people who I target that who didn't vote.
That's what I'm doing.
Okay, so that was the information I wanted to share with you guys. The next piece of information, we did start to get some information, Dribble's request in from people and other towns, in your case. Peg, I didn't make copies of all this, but we had from the person from Upton, Steve.
Yeah, what about him?
You just tell us about what
Oh, yeah. He and I have been in contact since we went over and looked at the building. And he's very interested in trying to kind of guide us along with suggestions and things, because he does want to see it pass. So he sent me an email, which I forwarded to you and to Ann Meza, and it said that, have we considered putting in a playground to appeal to the younger families? Now, usually that can be covered under CPA funds. So again, we're not touching the principal that we want to put down for the building. These are just extra things. But you, I think, forwarded it to Dan Byer, who said there really isn't a need for it.
Yeah, there's two things. Dan came back. Well, the cost of it came back too. Ann first said she'd be supported with CPA funds. The cost though would be somewhere between $550,000 to $600,000 to put a playground in. But Dan came back with some interesting comments, saying that we do have the playground across the street in Club. That's open to the public. There's a playground behind the school as well, a play area. There's the one at the beach. He felt that a playground wasn't as important for the citizens as the recreational things that would be in fields. So Dan weighed in on that. And I could send his final comments, but I think what we need to do is consider whatever we get in as input. And just as a committee, think about it. And maybe either say we should try to push for that or not. Dan was also concerned about bolting on additional items, even though it's CPA money.
Right. He doesn't even want us to mention any of those things. He
But
says go
we
just
talked
to the
about that
building.
last time.
Yeah,
I said the same thing because I got
Yeah.
feedback
Right.
saying that's already covered. Let's not bring up the recreation. Let's focus on the building. I would agree with that.
yeah. Yeah, I tend to agree with that too, because then we start to talk about, how many courts and what's the noise of the pickleball. So, but that's one piece of information come in. These suggestions that come in, we don't have to go with or not go with, but it's a committee. We need to hear them. The other person came in from Heather Plant,
Mhm.
and she was talking about using, changing the name. I think this was her. Yes.
She's the one that said that she thought the playground was a good idea.
No, the committee, this was the one she talked about the fact that I sent back to her saying that she wanted to be a community center, not a senior center, the name, it was a naming issue. She said, I'm wondering if we drop senior and referring to the center as a community center would make a difference to some of the town people. Maybe a segment of population discounted the attributes of the senior center, and that's why it didn't pass. And I said, and I countered to that, I just said, we'll bring it to the meeting. But I also said is that maybe we need to highlight the fact that the work that the center does now as a community center.
Yeah, I really did think we got that across. Maybe we didn't, but
Yeah,
I thought we did.
I still think there probably are people who have a bias against the name senior center. I mean, I don't know how big of a population it is, but they, that attitude that it's like, well, I'm not a senior citizen, so why would I go to a senior center? But
Yeah, unless they need food.
right,
Well, it's an emergency.
right.
Yeah,
But
I mean-
I'm not saying it's everybody. I just think there probably, are some people.
People out there.
And but who knows, maybe it's only 5%, like it's, they're, they exist and they're vocal but whether it's worth changing it to appease them, I don't know, right, I don't know, I mean, like.
Because
Kinda interesting.
I guess what I would say, I'd say, look around at how many towns have senior centers and how few don't have senior centers,
Right.
I think it's, I don't know.
Not only that, if you appease those people, you're gonna alienate the seniors.
Right, well,
I mean, that's what it's gonna be.
To some extent,
Yeah,
I wonder,
I mean-
like, right, there's the building and then there's the, you know, to some, it will be the senior center, whether or not the building is called the senior center. So to some extent, you know, if the building were called something else, like
Upton was called.
the
the
Mendon Center, which
Upton-
houses the
Upton
senior
was
center.
called the Upton Center for years, and actually now they're called what
It's the senior and libraries, both, isn't it?
yeah, but is it called senior?
I think it is.
See, but it was for decades, it was called the Upton Center. So where does somebody know, an older person know to go to get services?
Right.
The center, actually, that sounds like a kids drop-in center, I don't know.
Mike, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just feel like this is one of those things we could go chase our tails for a while. I think I've heard the other way too, is like, we don't need a community center, you know what I mean? So it was
Yeah.
interesting. And I think everybody made this point, if you appease one party, that might be a fringe group, you're gonna alienate another party potentially. So I would say as a committee, let's make a decision and do what we believe is right and just move forward.
I mean, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I personally still like the senior and community center. I think it was,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it captured both of those functions.
I would agree with that. Because we really tried to stress the community thing and I think it captures both. It's a dual purpose.
I
Mike,
think,
you suggest-
maybe we move away from the title though, Phil. Don't talk, we keep introducing it via title, but maybe we start focusing more on the functional, the services this solution will deliver to the town, but try to keep away from the naming of it so that people don't get hung up on the words.
So maybe we talk about the center and here are the functions that are in it. And not necessarily focus on what we name the thing.
Yeah, we're really focused on enhancing service delivery to the taxpayers of the town. We've got, community outreach in the form of X, Y, and Z. We've got programming for, both young and old, et cetera. You know what I mean?
I think one issue is the wording on the ballot will be fixed, whatever we
Yep.
call the ballot. But whatever we call it in the ballot, we can talk about it in a number of different ways as long as we make it clear to people what the yes vote means on the ballot.
Yeah, I mean, I
And
agree with that, Elaine. I think we can take the conversation and create the narrative we want to make as we engage. And the wording on the ballot would be it'll become less of an issue because if people know what's happening, they're going to go in saying yes or no. Right?
Right.
Hopefully, yes.
Hopefully. I'm an internal optimist. We're gonna make it. The glass is still half full. The only other bit of information that I received was from Carol. And that was that meeting that she recommended us to go to.
From which,
Karen Patel.
Carolyn,
Oh, Carolyn.
that was the one that I sent about
Yes.
the funding opportunities for geothermal projects.
Right. I signed up for it. I'm gonna go look
Okay.
into it.
Yes.
And anybody else who want to sign up, I can share it. I don't know if we all need to do that. We got other things.
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's, I know, it's something that Carolyn is interested in general, and I'm interested in it as well. Whether we find out there's something that we could do with this project, that would be,
Yeah.
we'll find out.
And I think she'll be an active member once we get back on Tuesday schedule.
Mhm.
It'd be good to welcome her.
Phil, when you meet with Mike,
Yes.
can you get a sense of what setting it up, not solar to run the building, but solar to generate on that site, generate output? Because there might be some, the bipartisan infrastructure at the federal level, there might be some opportunities to get funding and possibly payback if we're creating a solar output.
So not necessarily for building, just do a solar. configuration.
Well, I think the
to do
building could leverage it, but also we could actually have some payback from the federal government based on creating and producing solar output.
Yeah, and you got a point, bring a point. I'll embrace that point. Rather than focusing on the building alone, look at solar output.
And if it's cost prohibitive, I mean, yeah, I'm assuming it is, but I think it's worth looking at it to see if the ROI on grants and stuff might make that a little more feasible.
Yeah, because I know when we did the first blush, and we didn't do a lot of study. First blush was that it was cost prohibitive. We said if we could find it and get it granted and funded, we would do it. So that, that was our first attempt when we ever discussed solar. But I can bring it up to him. He may have some, things are always changing. He may know some new things. Okay, any other business?
Yes, it's not new, but we still have that earmark potential, the congressional earmark, so that's not dead yet.
Good.
So, but I think, yeah, I don't know, we'll hear something later this summer, but it would be, fingers crossed that we get at least a chunk of change that will.
I would love to see it.
I think that would also, help shave down the cost,
So
so.
that's the proposal that you were working on that.
So, right.
I signed a letter
Right.
and gave it to you.
Yes, so, right, a number of people worked on that. I sort of,
Hold it down.
I caught it before it was falling through the cracks. Like
Okay.
it had been started by,
You put your bid out there.
a few people, and then yes, a bunch of people stepped up and helped, get together. So like the congressional aide seemed to think that like we had a really like solid proposal. So I think it has a good chance. So,
When will it be awarded, do you know?
so I haven't really followed like the schedule. She said, it would be sometime in July, I think. So like maybe this month we'll find out. I don't know, but you never know. It could be like August. So.
Well, that'd be wonderful. We had something going to there.
And the
So-
one that Representative Murray was working on at the state level, it had only passed one of the houses. There was
Yeah.
earmarked for us, the library, and someone else.
I think it was maybe the Providence Street. I feel like it was roads. Do you remember, Mike?
Well, there's $100,000. I think that was identified.
But I don't know if that ever passed in the second.
I don't know either.
No, I don't know yet.
Okay,
Sounds like something we could follow up and check into. I don't
Yeah,
know.
because those things will also be good selling points.
That's right.
We did mention them in the last minute because they were coming in from,
We did,
but we didn't have.
but now we know that a lot of people had already voted.
that's right.
So,
That's right.
Yeah, and the other side of that coin is if we would get major federal support, I think that the first people pass out because we never get that, it's just town. But that would be quite helpful.
Right, we'll show that they have faith in our project.
So Phil, when you, Dave, and I met, we talked about, the number was like 10.5, but it was, deliver building at design for 10.5, but then we deliver it at 9.5 type of thing. Remember that
Yeah.
discussion?
Yeah.
What is the number that Mike is working towards? Because I think the other piece that we should probably, Elena, I gave Jeremy a heads up, this will be coming, is start looking at what's the analysis Jody did the first time. We probably need to rerun those numbers and get
Right,
some.
yep.
So I didn't know if when you talk to Mike, if you can get a sense of,
I gave him that guidance about, a building that is not completely finished, come under $10 million. So
would it make sense to run 9.5, 10.5 numbers from a
Absolutely,
tax impact?
absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think if you could do that, that'd be great.
right, I think.
I sat down and did the
Jeremy's
numbers briefly, just by extrapolating from where we were at with some of the numbers Jody gave us. To me, it didn't seem like a big impact. Because when you take $149 and take a small percentage of that off, you still have a small decrease. But it may be important, but we should run the numbers because we have a new operation now with the.
I think it's going to, couple things. Interest rates are changing, which is good. Secondly,
Yeah.
I think managing to level debt, you might see an impact there more so than like the straight number against a single household.
I would like to, yeah, run them, please, whatever you can find.
And the
hopefully
good
for
news
better.
is, level debt load is something Jeremy is a big fan of. He would recommend doing that, so he was happy to hear that we did that.
Yeah, I think that's the only way the town can survive with level debt loading. Because then you can start moving projects in and you're not all competing. I'm a supporter of that.
And, you know, one of the things that the feedback we got was that newspaper article that did reference the original number of like 350. If we show that the project is now gonna cost under 10 million, say, and this is the number we have, and that gets in the newspaper,
Right.
you know, and so.
And yet make sure the newspaper labels it debt exclusion. Because even though it still falls under the proposition 2.5, people have that knee-jerk reaction to override, because they think of the operational override and not the debt exclusion.
Well, that's the important thing about that document, the mail piece that we come out. We need to
Right.
explain what that is.
But hopefully we can also, like, with the free press, like, help them get more accurate information to the public.
Well, but that's the information that we had at the time.
Oh,
It-
right,
it's-
it was, but
Just that
like
it was right.
got a little bit,
Headline.
some of it wasn't, I think, fully accurate, like, so I think, yeah, having the headline talk about the override, I think, even though there's a technical sense in which it's true, it is not, like, it is labeled a debt exclusion, and I think it doesn't have the same baggage associated with it.
So what happened there too is she came to the first open house.
That's the wrong numbers we have.
And she wrote that. She's also very agreeable to, you know, the information that we sent her. I think she's very happy that we're giving her lots of news that, so if we have something written
Maybe we
out.
could suggest some catchy headlines.
Yeah, no, but where the meat of it is accurate. you know.
Yes, yeah,
Okay, Mike?
Elena, I think we should also tie it to a broader capital plan and
True.
focus on that theme, because then it's not, it won't be looked at necessarily as a single project knee jerk, no
Yes.
due diligence, but as part of a
Yes.
broader plan.
yes.
I absolutely agree with you. What you guys brought up at one of the select meetings, one of these meetings, talking about how it fits into the picture of the town.
Yes, yes.
It's crucial.
And I mean, on that, like, just tangential to that, hopefully we'll be moving forward with communications with the public about a plan for recreational fields. So I know, because that was where we got pushback from some demographics.
Yep.
And so they're not mutually exclusive projects. And so I think if we show that we can move, we can walk and chew gum.
There you go.
We can work on both of these projects, especially since they have, you know, potentially very different funding sources. So hopefully we'll be getting that meeting scheduled soon, Mike, and I'll talk with you about that. I don't know if Jeremy's reached out to you yet, but
I was just gonna text you and say, let's talk about that, because I want to get started.
yeah, so I talked to Dan today, and so we probably will do it in August because you know, we want to have parks there. And it sounds like August will be better for them. So that's soon. August is
Yeah.
startlingly soon.
Interesting enough, I'm thinking that I say in this calendar loosely, the September and October town kind of information meeting. It'd be great if we had that kind of information percolating in the September, October timeframe.
Yes,
And rather than us just go out there by ourselves again as a community center,
right.
you have all those pieces together. So
Mhm.
that's excellent that you're working on that.
Is there no Rock the Block this year? Is that canned?
There probably will be. Huh?
Oh, it's not.
There's a country fair again this year.
Well, yeah, that's okay.
Right.
Because last year we went to that. Rock the
Yeah,
Block.
no, I haven't seen anything on that.
Lonnie
They
would know.
decided not to do it this
Oh,
year.
did
Oh,
they?
they
Okay,
did.
so you heard that definitely. Okay.
Hey,
Okay.
Phil,
Joe,
can we find out from Ellen when the ballot gets mailed out, the mail outs? Because that was obviously a problem
I
before.
think it's in
We-
the
we-
chart.
So
I
we
think
want to
I
work
have-
back, we want to work backwards from there with our message because it doesn't help.
They go out
with
early
costing.
October, it says.
Yeah.
Mail balance outs, early October. Early voters start on that. So I'd assume like October.
Well, he's
First
looking
week
for
in
a date.
October.
Dave-
Yeah, if we
Dave's
can just get a
looking for
date and then we can work back
Sure.
like 30 days from there and say that's when we really need to stop pushing.
Yeah.
Would it make sense to see if Ellen can start attending this meeting? I think she's critical in sort of the coordination side. And if she's
On
got
this-
information she can relay, if she's asked questions, she's better armed for it.
Sure, I can invite him.
Don't tell her who gave you that idea though, Phil.
I will.
This is already published.
Okay. Good ideas. Any other good ideas? Okay, I thought tonight was getting some stimulated talk here, starting to get us up off the ground again. And we got some big missions. We do need help, though. Anybody who knows a friend, Karen, if you need a friend out there, message out. And I'll try to hit neighbors, and I'd encourage you all to try to do that, anybody can find them. Okay. I have nothing else for tonight. I suggest we meet not next week, but in 2 weeks. This way we'll have the results of the ballot question. And that focus, I think, really needs to hone in on schedule and communication.
So we're going back to the 23rd then, back to the Tuesday.
Tuesdays, yeah. Tuesday, I think, was we did this for the boat race.
Mhm.
So. That'll work. Okay, keep the cards and suggestions coming.
7:30.
And I have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Signing off. Have a good one, guys.
Let's see,